Everybody deadlifts in the gym. But not everybody is deadlifting right. That includes the fitness YouTubers. Being a 2-time powerlifting world champion, I know that deadlifting can be quite challenging. And this is why I wanted to analyze the deadlift of some of the best fitness YouTubers. The goal is to see if they're actually good or if some of them are just frauds. I'll be scoring their deadlift on 2 criteria, strength and technique. Each criteria will score on a scale from 0 to 5, 0 for the worst and 5 for the best. I'll then add the 2 scoring, and that will give an overall score, which will then give them a rank. From S tier being for the absolute best deadlifters, down until D tier for the worst fitness YouTubers. Let's start with the first candidate.
Woke up, it's 9 o'clock, we gotta go to weigh-ins.
197 right now, and 2 days ago I was 215.
Yeah, my kid hasn't had water in 3 days. All I hear is about fucking him not.
So, first video, it's the Tren twins. There's one thing that's funny, quote unquote, is that they did it in like a powerlifting competition, which is not the same as doing it in the gym for a casual training, and that counts. And also, like, it's the morning and they're just dead. And that really reminds me when I'm also cutting weight for my competitions, you do feel exactly like they're feeling right now in the video. You're like drained, you lost maybe 5 pounds, 10 pounds for your competition, and you still have to deadlift heavy later on. So yeah, I just wanted to start with that because very, very accurate from the Tren twins for this first deadlift video. So now onto the actual deadlifting. So I always forget because, you know, they're twins, so it's hard to know which one is who. But I think the first one with the sumo stance is Chris and the other one is Mikey. Also, I'll be scoring 1 point less for any sumo deadlift that I see right now. No, it's a joke. Maybe not. So 282 kilos. I think they said they're like 90 kilo body weight. So honestly, in terms of strength ratio, that's not that bad. That's really not that bad. I'd say it's pretty elite because they don't train exactly for powerlifting. So although they're untested, you know, I'd say it's still a strong deadlift. Now in terms of technique, so we have a sumo stance. He's sitting down a bit too much, and I would say I'm sure it's really costing him for the lockout. As you can see, he struggles more at the lockout, and that's probably one of the reasons why. Because with the sumo, a lot of people assume that because it's a sumo, you have to squat the weight, and the problem is the main driver for strength, whether it's sumo or conventional, is actually the hips. And if you're lowering yourself too much, you're actually causing your hips to not be in an as good position. So you can see off the floor it's pretty fast, but then once it's about lockout, it slows down a lot, and that's because he's sitting down a bit too much at the beginning. Overall, I'd say Chris has a pretty good technique. Really not too bad, really not too bad. Now we're on to Mikey, who's deadlifting conventional. Everybody who deadlifts conventional in this list will get 1 bonus point. So Mikey gets a bonus point, not Chris. And here I'm immediately caught by something. As you can see, his hand is already giving out in terms of grip. And the problem with that is your hand can be a limiting factor to your deadlift strength. And if you look closely, when he grabs the bar at first before pulling, he's having it a bit too high in his hand. And from the moment he starts pulling, the bar just rolls off his hand, goes lower. And because you have this motion, that's what's causing his hand to open up in the first place. And his knees aren't really locked out either. So I think that wasn't a very good deadlift to open the competition with, unfortunately. And I think he didn't get the deadlift from the referees, by the way. And then he jumps up to 294 kilos. And I think that's a big jump, especially given that his hand was already giving out with 270 kilos. So I think that's maybe too big of a jump, especially if your hands are opening up. But with how the bar is moving, it's obvious that he has the strength in terms of like his overall body, but his hands are really the limiting factor because of that. So as you can see with his build, he has pretty short arms. And what I would suggest to an athlete like himself who has shorter arms and he also has like big legs, I would say maybe try the sumo deadlift, because with the conventional, you have a lot of friction between the bar and your thighs. So if you go sumo, because your legs are actually outwards, you have way less friction between the bar and your thighs. And if you have short arms, that can change a lot the overall dynamics and the overall leverages of the movement. So despite that, I'd say that they both have very good technique. They're both pretty elite in terms of strength. So now let's rank the Tren twins. So in terms of strength, I'll give them the same score, and I think it's a score of 4 out of 5. So 4 for Mikey and 4 for Chris. Again, pretty good numbers. They're deadlifting around 280 kilos, which in pounds is a bit over 600 pounds, around 620, I think. And that's a very good number. Again, whether they're untested or not, around 90 kilos, over 260, around the 600 pounds barrier, I think you're pretty much elite by then. So yeah, I'd give them 4 out of 5. And then in terms of technique, I think that Chris has a slightly better technique. So I'll probably give Chris a 3.5 out of 5. And I'll give Mikey a 3 because his hand positioning is not really good and it's hindering a lot his deadlift ability. Besides that, I think they overall have understood the mechanics of the movement. So overall scoring for the Tren twins, it's 7.5 for Chris, 7 for Mikey, and they both go in the A tier in terms of deadlift strength and technique. Second deadlift candidate, LeanBeefPatty. So just like the Tren twins, she did that in a powerlifting competition setup. Again, like I said, much harder because with the powerlifting competition, you have the weigh-ins, you don't get to deadlift whenever you want. And also when you max out in the gym, it's usually a day you're feeling pretty strong. In a powerlifting competition, you don't decide the day you max out. It's like on the 20th of November, you have to be at your best because you'll be attempting a max rep. So I tend to give a higher ranking to those circumstances because they're harder to perform in. So deadlift opener, 125 kilos. Oh, I'm actually surprised. She has very, very good technique, like very good technique. So second attempt, she jumps up 7.5. Same very good technique. And also it's pretty badass because she's pulling double overhand with the hook grip, and I'll talk with experience. I've tried the hook grip. It's one of the most painful things, yeah, probably top 10 painful things that I've experienced in my life. I know we all are a bit different on that, but the fact that she's able to deadlift double overhand hook grip, that's bonus point. And she's pulling conventional too, so double bonus points. Am I completely biased? Maybe, probably. But it's my tier list. And my camera guy is also a big fan of LeanBeefPatty. So yeah, honestly, I don't have anything to say. I think her technique is really probably the best it can be. It's obvious that her hips have a very good motion. If I was to really find the smallest detail, I would say her hips are rising up a bit when she pulls, and that can be a problem. Here in this case, it's not, because sometimes some athlete, and myself included, we like to set our hips a bit lower because it allows you to get in a better position. If you look at the deadlift from some of the best deadlifters in the world, namely Eddie Hall, for instance, you can see he lowers himself because then he can position himself better, and then when he pulls, his hips rise up. But because he has a better positioning overall, I think that's a good strategy. So I would definitely give that to LeanBeefPatty. Yeah, technique, it's 5 out of 5. Excellent technique. In terms of strength now, she was able to deadlift 142.5 kilos, which is 315 pounds. The problem is I didn't find her body weight anywhere. So if she's around the 50 something kilos, like 55 kilos, I'd say it's also elite. Not a lot of female lifters can deadlift that much. If she's around the 60 or above 60 kilos body weight, I think it's probably like strong, but not elite. So because I don't know, I'll probably aim right in the middle, and I would probably say 3.5 out of 5 score for strength. So 5 for technique, 3.5 for strength. She's at 8.5. So basically, LeanBeefPatty is our first S-tier deadlifter from the fitness YouTubers. So congratulations. That's very impressive. Now, honestly, I'm really impressed with her technique. So is LeanBeefPatty stronger than the Tren twins on the deadlift? That's what my camera guy said. So yeah, on to the next one. Third deadlift candidate, Sulek. I'll be honest with you, I'm heartbroken because when I wanted to check and to analyze Sam Sulek's deadlift, I learned that Sam Sulek doesn't deadlift. Yeah, I was heartbroken, man. So this week, two things broke my heart: the Luka Doncic trade and learning that Sam Sulek doesn't deadlift. And he says he doesn't deadlift because he can't really isolate any muscle, and obviously he's just training for muscle and not really for strength. And I get that. And I would say that I'm probably somewhat in agreement with Sam Sulek because it's really hard to feel a muscle when you're deadlifting, especially when you're doing your max. So when I'm doing, for instance, sets of 5 with 80% of my max, I can definitely feel my lower body. Like I can feel my glutes, I can feel my hamstrings, I can feel my adductors engage. And because of that, I know that those muscles are working. And the deadlift is a very good exercise in order to reinforce the posterior chain and to get a lot of muscle mass on it. But you also have to factor in some other details. Number one, when you're doing a max out, it's definitely not the same. When I'm maxing out my deadlift, I don't feel any muscle. It's just like suffering, you know. I don't feel a good pump in my glutes or what. It's just I'm currently suffering maxing out my deadlift. And also another aspect that's also key is deadlifting is very, very exhausting for your body, for your central nervous system. And obviously if you do a lot of deadlifts and then you have bodybuilding pro lower body training right after, it's very hard, if not impossible to do. So I would say I get why Sam Sulek doesn't deadlift. Does it ease my pain learning that he doesn't deadlift? No, but it makes sense. But my only problem is I then found a video of Sam Sulek squatting, and man, if he's deadlifting as well as he's squatting, not only like technique, but also strength, Sam Sulek is elite. Because the video I saw, it's him repping 500 pounds on squats, like completely raw, no knee sleeves, no belt, no nothing. Close stance, ass to grass for multiple reps. So if Sam Sulek is as good on deadlifts as that, he's definitely elite. But at least for now, we never know. Sam Sulek, you broke my heart. So should we put Sam Sulek in the D tier? Guys, you should have seen the camera guy reaction. He was like, Nani? Ah man, we'll put Sam Sulek in the D tier. We have to. He doesn't deadlift. Strength, we don't know, so it's 0. Technique, we don't know, it's 0. Come on, man, we have to. Let's move on. I can't, let's move on. Candidate number 4, we're analyzing Jeff Nippard's deadlift. So Jeff Nippard, I think he somewhat trains for strength on top of physique, obviously, and I'll take that into account. Oh yeah. Yeah, very good technique. So the thing with Jeff Nippard, like I said earlier when I analyzed Mike deadlift from the Tren twins, I told you that he has short arms, and when you have short arms and big legs and you pull conventional, you have a lot of friction between the bar and your thighs, and that can cause like grip issues or lockout issues. And here, as you can see, Jeff has a somewhat similar build to Mike because he has big legs and he has pretty short arms. As you can see, he's locking out very close to his hip level. So he doesn't have like terrible leverages, but those aren't really good leverages either. And probably because of that, he's switched to the sumo stance. So the sumo stance, like I said, you have less friction between the bar and your legs. So for the bigger boys with shorter arms, that's probably the way to go. And also, if you have pretty good hip mobility, the sumo deadlift will probably be a more advantageous lift in terms of overall leverages because you can get your hips closer to the bar. So Jeff is using that as the science guys that he is, optimizing everything, and it's obvious with his deadlift that his technique is very, very optimized. I would definitely say that Jeff has really, really good technique with the sumo, and here he's deadlifting almost 500 pounds for 2 reps, which is pretty solid, I would say. I think Jeff is around 76, 78 kilos something. So being able to do 500, how much is 500 in kilos? 500 in kilos, let me double check. Oh, 225 kilos probably. Yeah, so it's actually very, very good. So Jeff Nippard, in terms of technique, I would probably give him 4.5. I think he's sitting out a bit too much at times, but overall his technique is very, very good. So 4.5 out of 5 in terms of technique. And in terms of strength, so 225 for 2 reps at around 76, 78 kilos. I would definitely say it's strong. Not elite, not quite there, but very, very strong. So for that, I would probably give him 3.5 out of 5. So 8 out of 10 in terms of strength and technique for Jeff Nippard, and that gives him the S tier with LeanBeefPatty. Should I put him above or below LeanBeefPatty? So I think Jeff is probably a bit stronger than her, but her technique is better. So, I mean, it's hard. I think for the moment we still have LeanBeefPatty, S tier, best fitness YouTuber on deadlifts. The camera guy was like, but it's all about to change with the last candidate for this deadlift analysis. Guys, I'm so happy to analyze this deadlift. You can't imagine. I'll just give you a hint. I want to go deadlift now. But before I go deadlift, I'll analyze the last candidate, which is Ronnie Coleman, aka the King. So obviously I said I'm analyzing fitness YouTubers. Ronnie Coleman was like an athlete, like bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder. But because there are a lot of videos on YouTube, just for the sake of this video, let's pretend he's a fitness YouTuber, like giving you advice on how to grow glutes with Ronnie Coleman. Imagine if Ronnie Coleman had done that, actually. I would have followed his program. Anyway, back to the video, back to the analysis. So there's something that struck me, and guys, I need answers. It's not that I want, it's that I need answers. So he has a back spotter. Okay, makes sense. You know, if you faint, he's catching you, making sure like you don't hit your head, falling backwards, etc. That's awesome. But please, explain to me this. Explain to me. So if I was Ronnie Coleman and then I'm reviewing the footage, okay, and I see that the back spotter did that, I'm like, what's the intent? Like, I know another scenario where you do stuff like that, but not in the gym when you're about to back spot your body on deadlifts. Anyway, back to the deadlift. Okay, looking at how the back spotter is watching Ronnie, I think I exactly know why he did I think I know. Anyway, in this video, I think at some point Ronnie says he's like 5-6 weeks out from Mr. Olympia, and he's deadlifting like 800 pounds, solid ass pounds, sorry. That's just absolutely insane. Yeah, that's crazy. That's really, really impressive. You know, obviously he's heavy. I think he's probably around the, what 120 kilos, 130 kilos probably, I would say, maybe even more than that. But that's, in terms of absolute strength, it's like you have elite and then you have elite amongst elite, and he's there. Ronnie Coleman, I think he's probably, without any doubt, the strongest bodybuilder that ever existed. So in terms of strength, no debate, it will be 5 out of 5. How about technique? So, I talked about it briefly before, but he's pulling conventional, bonus points. You don't want your hips to be too low when you're deadlifting. Some athletes, we have the counterexample with Eddie Hall, like I said, where you can see he's like really lowering his hips prior to pulling, but when he's pulling, you can see that his hips have actually risen quite substantially. And why is that? Because if your hips aren't at a certain height, you can't use them as leverages to actually lift the bar. So here you can see Ronnie has pretty high hip positioning, and despite what some people may think, it's actually how you properly deadlift. It depends on your leverages, obviously. If you have shorter leverages like femurs and stuff like that, your positioning, you'll be looking a bit more seated, for instance like Jeff Nippard. But if you have longer leverages like Ronnie has, this positioning makes a lot of sense. So here actually what I would say is Ronnie has one of the most textbook deadlift conventional technique. It's probably one of the best techniques I've ever seen. It's very close to like LeanBeefPatty, but with leverages that I would say are a bit less advantageous. So definitely here Ronnie Coleman has excellent form. One of the best deadlift techniques you'll find, especially with those weights, because obviously the heavier you go, the harder it is to have good technique. Because of that, I would also give Ronnie 5 out of 5 for technique, and that gives us 10 out of 10, which is S tier. I also want to create a new tier for Ronnie. How can we call this tier? Like the ooh tier. So Ronnie goes in the ooh tier. He's the best deadlifter we've seen today. Yeah, like I said, I hope that people realize, especially back then, how elite he was. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, man, I'm bamboozled by Ronnie Coleman here. So that wraps up today's video. And if you want me to analyze more lifters or some other movements like the squat or the bench press, let me know in the comment who I should analyze next. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Ooh! I'm about to go deadlift now. Full mode Ronnie Coleman. Lightweight, baby! Ooh! Bamboozled.